to see people are joining.
Yeah. So now I think people have started. We have quite a number of people, but the time is 4, so we'll wait for. We are still 2-3 minutes.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so we'll start our thing at 4.
Where is our other speaker? You contacted?
Yeah, I think yeah, he must be joining anytime. So I'll just. I think Suraj, now we are. It's 4, so so many attendees have already joined. So we'll wait for the other panelists few seconds and we'll start by the time he'll come. So my colleague is just checking with them.
Sure. You can hear me clear, right? I'm just
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly. I can hear you perfectly.
And the video is also fine.
Yes, everything is fine. So we are now live on YouTube as well.
Great.
And yeah, we are being watched on YouTube as well. So till we start, we'll have a conversation so that Suraj, what I mean, this pandemic, after this pandemic, how things are affected. I think our other panelist, Rakesh Kumar, Mr. Rakesh Kumar is also here. Hello, Mr. Rakesh Kumar. How are you?
Hi, good evening, everyone. How are you, Mr. Sameer? Hi, Mr. Suraj. How are you?
Very nice. Good afternoon, Mr. Rakesh Kumar.
I think now our panelists are here, and we should start our. It's 4, so we formally start our this wonderful session.
Sure.
Yeah. Welcome, friends. This webinar is related to settlement, succession planning, and family settlements for business houses. Post-pandemic, this issue has become more important and relevant for us to deliberate upon. Before we introduce our panelists today and proceed further with our webinar, I would just like to thank the organizer who have organized this, who have bring this webinar to life. Friends, this webinar is organized by India Juris. This is an international law firm operating different offices in India and doing international practice. This in association with AEA, which is a European network of lawyers, Justinian Lawyers, which is network of exclusive international law firms, to which India Juris is one of the part of it. Chamber of Startups, Industries and Entrepreneurs, which is Apex Chamber for startups, MSMEs and other industries. My Place Co-working, which is a leading tier 2, tier 3 startup, which is providing co-working spaces to various business houses, which has become more relevant in this post this pandemic. So friends, in this webinar, we are joined by participants from more than 50 cities across India. We had a very wonderful registration, and the attendees over here, for the knowledge of my panelists, I'd like to inform them that attendees in this webinar are business houses, professionals, consultants, chartered accountants, lawyers, all across the business community is connected to this webinar and looking forward to have some inputs and some insight into this section. So once again, very warm welcome to all attendees. Friends, in this webinar, today we have to give you an insight, 360 insight on this particular topic. We have two very excellent panelists with us. First is Mr. Suraj Malik. He is partner in BDO. He specializes in M&A and tax. And to his credit, he has family settlements and business houses settlement and succession planning of some large businesses in India. A very warm welcome to Mr. Suraj Malik. Very welcome.
Thank you.
Friends, our next panelist is Advocate Rakesh Kumar. He has experience of more than 2 decades. He's a company secretary as well. He has been chairman of Faridabad chapter of CS. He is secretary of NCLT and NCLT Bar, New Delhi. And he is having very established practice in Supreme Court, NCLT, High Court, and various other forums. A very warm welcome to Mr. Rakesh Kumar.
Thank you, Samir.
Welcome. So friends, you would have heard why succession planning is required for business houses. I will use mix of Hindi and English because it goes better with all of us. सब लोगों ने सुना है अपने वेदों में पुराने जमाने में कि पहली पीढ़ी बिजनेस बनाती है, दूसरी उसको बढ़ाती है, एंजॉय करती है, और तीसरी उसको वाइप ऑफ कर देती है. So this is an old saying that first generation makes it, second expands it, enjoys it, and third wipes it out. So why it happens कि third, fourth generation में business खत्म हो जाता है? But this is not so. There are exceptions to it. There are businesses which are happening, which are coming around hundreds of years. But what's the difference? So I think we'll find the answer to that in this webinar. Probably one of the main reason is an excellent, a proper succession planning at appropriate time. So friends, to start, I would invite our first panelist, Mr. Suraj Malik, to give his insight and share his knowledge on this particular subject with our attendees. Welcome, Mr. Suraj Malik.
Thank you so much, Samir, and a very good afternoon to everyone. This topic is very close to my heart, and I'm sure it's a topic that relates to family is, relevant to everyone by and large. We are all the only common thread or theme for all of us here today on this call is that we all come from a family, and in business family, succession becomes even more important or critical. Just give me 1 sec. I'm trying to share my screen before we start. Samir, can you give me the rights to share my screen?
Yeah. Yes, please. Yes, and you can share your, yes.
It is somehow. Maybe I'm getting some technical issue with it. Ramesh, do you want to start? Because I'm not able to upload my screen as of now. Can you see my screen?
No, we are unable to see at the moment.
maybe if Ramesh ji wants to start, I will just fix this meanwhile. In
Yeah.
the interest of time.
Yeah. So I think we can go with Mr. Rakesh, or how? What do you say?
Yes.
Yeah. Rakesh ji, sorry.
Yes. Yes.
Please,
Okay.
producer. I just have some issues with.
So yeah, so friends, I think there is some technical issue with Mr. Suraj Malik. So what we'll do, we'll hear Mr. Rakesh Kumar on the subject, and by the time I think things will be fixed, and we'll hear Mr. Suraj Malik after that. Mr. Rakesh Kumar, please.
Good evening to everyone. I first convey my thanks to India Jury's team, who has given me this wonderful opportunity to speak on this subject. My great thanks to this team. This is very critical subject, succession and succession planning and this family settlement. A lot of disputes are related to this subject. So as far as the succession planning is concerned, I believe Mr. Suraj will dwell upon those issues, structuring issues and all. I have prepared this synopsis for the litigation part. Can I, Samir, can I share my screen?
Yes, you can share. Yes, you can share. Yes, we are not able to see your
Is it
screen
there?
at the moment. No, we are not able to see the screen at the moment.
Just a minute. Is it there?
नहीं, screen अभी आ नहीं रही है.
Just a moment.
Let me try mine.
Is it-
I think
Is it there?
Yeah, Rakesh's screen has come, I think. Yes.
Yeah.
So friends, I have divided my presentation into the 4 parts. Just a minute. Yes. Yeah, this family settlement, friends, in the business houses group travels through the various stages. The first stage is the pre-dispute stage. The second stage is the post-dispute stage. Third stage is litigation stage, and fourth stage is post-litigation stage. Just a moment. Yes. So my experience for the last 17 years are on certain practical issues of these family settlements of the business houses group, which I have seen in the court proceedings. So these all are the practical experience of me. This is, first of all, this pre-dispute stage is very important. If we can prevent the dispute to happen, then there will not be any court proceeding, etc. The pre-dispute stage, the first is start from business families, sometimes do not want to involve outsiders. So it has been my experience, the business families, they want that they should settle their dispute between themselves. They should not involve the outsiders. But somehow it happens, the professionally ultimately comes into, and they need the help of the professional to sort out this issue. So the first important step in this regard is the constitution of the succession plan for the preparation by the professionals. So this is very important document which needs to be prepared for these family settlements by the professionals. But what are the prerequisites prior to drafting this constitutional succession plan? My experience is the professionals, those who wish to involve in this process succession plan of any business house, they should have first of all overall knowledge of that particular business group. In the business group, there may be a number of entities, companies, partnership firms, so many assets. So unless a professional who is going to prepare this constitutional succession plan, the knowledge of all those entities and assets is very difficult to have to comprehend everything. So that's very important issue where the professional should have the comprehensive knowledge. The next part is bridging the gap between old and young members. In the business families, once it is an old business house, there are generations which are working. Even I have seen even the grandfather, son, then great grandson and the great grandson, all are involved in the businesses. So there are a diversion of views also. So the professionals' help is needed to first bridge the gap between the old and young members of the business family. That's also very important while drafting of this constitution of the succession plan. This is very important aspects. Then the next step is to list of assets, wealth, and properties. In the business group, there are several kind of properties. Some are the ancestral properties, some are the self-acquired properties, some are the properties which the family members have in their name. They do not want to consider it as a family property, but those properties acquired through the common earning of the business group. So professionals, while this drafting of this constitutional succession plan, needs to jot down all those assets, wealth, properties, everything. That should be clear. Then the next is the bias should be eliminated. This is our experience. Any head of the business family, chairman of any big corporate group, those who are close to the chairman, there is some biasness of a particular family member. So the professional's role is there because this is a pre-dispute stage. Professional can play a very active role at this stage and can eliminate the bias at this stage. So this is very important aspect to be looked into at this stage. Then this is also very important issue, specific attachment to any group company assets. Sometimes when the professionals start working on preparation of the family settlements, there is a attachment of a particular family member to a particular group company which he's running. He wants that company should come to in his favor, or this particular asset should goes in his favor. So all those aspects, psychological aspects, professional needs to chalk out while preparing this constitutional plan, succession plan. It's very important because otherwise there will be resentment, and resentment will lead to the litigation. So our professional role is to prevent the litigation in this family settlements in these disputes. Then this is also very important, protection and respect of the elders. There are various cases we have seen where the elder members, elder corporate members, they settle everything, but after some years they find they don't have any place in the group. So it is the duty of the professional when they structure the family settlement. Elders, those who have built up the corporate group, they should find the appropriate places in their roles. Someone can be a chairman, someone can be a patron, any position, and with the securities. Elders should not feel that they have given everything to their generations. So there should be a security for the elders as well. Here I would pause. I would give the example in one of the group I have seen. That is company that is running through now 5th generations. That is not a very big group. It's a small group, but it's a corporate house group. They have written their constitution where even now the 5th generation, they are following those rules and regulations, and the wealth is protected today. So the purpose is the wealth should also be protected, and wealth should be distributed also, and resentment should be eliminated. That is the purpose. Then thereafter, the professional role is to identify who will participate in the businesses, who will be the known participants. Some people want that we do not want to carry out the businesses. We want inorganic growth. We do not want to be in the business family group. You part with our wealth. So that aspects also needs to be looked into very carefully by the professionals. while drafting this succession plan. Then the next issue is management and ownership. Whether the management should be in the hand of the outsider or with the family group, how it should be conveyed. This is also very important aspect in this constitution, and how the ownership should be structured. This all depends on case to case basis. There cannot be any uniform guidelines, but these are the aspects which looks into. Then thereafter, the financial information and issues for this family settlement. The financial, any professionals who is involved in this process should, I believe, it is not only the role of the legal experts or the financial experts. It is the role of many experts. If it is a big corporate house group, because if someone do not have the comprehension of the complete financial information, it is not easy to prepare this succession plan. Because while doing the structuring, if you don't have the knowledge, like how many exposures the group have taken, what properties have given as a mortgage, how much shareholding is pledged. So overall, how the bank will be ready for this family settlement. Their third-party stakeholders also, whether they would be agree or not, this is a very important financial information, which is very important to be keep in view while drafting this. Then the another issue is the brand and goodwill. The major dispute I have seen erupts on this, brand and goodwill. If there is a big corporate group, every member wants to take away the goodwill of the group. So there should be a well-written policy how the brand and goodwill of the group would be used by the generations. It is a very important issue. Thereafter, this migration structuring. How, if the family settlement takes place, then ultimately how it will come into effect. It is also a very important issue. Today you decide something, but tomorrow it cannot come into effect. That is the difficulty. So there should be a proper tested migration structuring in accordance with regulation, laws, established practices. It should be a smooth going. And the taxation aspects, stamp duty aspects, capital gain, every aspect should be considered at this point, because after entering into this constitution, if some difficulty arises, then the dispute arises. Then group name should last forever. My experience is that if professional can help to the business houses group, that if they can protect the group name, because there can be a separation family settlements where they use the common name in whichever manner they expand their businesses, but the group name remains the same.
I think there is connection loss.
Let me pick it from there if, in the interest of continuity. Can you hear me well, Samir?
Yeah, I can hear you.
So I think the point which Rakesh Kumarji was making was very critical, right? That ultimately what most people want is to preserve goodwill, legacy, right? More than wealth. I think, especially if you're a founder or you're a creator of business, a lot, through succession planning is what is desired or achieved is continuity of legacy. So beyond wealth and all the laws, as Rakesh Kumarji was mentioning, I think the point that you were trying to make.
We have been representing a lot of business houses, and there are cases are going on this aspect only. Who will have the goodwill will go, who will have the brand, and how it will be divided. Yeah. These are very major issues. Yeah, I think now Rakesh is back. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, you can share your screen again. Yes. Now, yeah, yes.
So this, I was on this issue, the critical points of the pre-dispute stage. Then I was discussing this group name should last forever. If the professional can help to the business houses that they can protect the group name, because it can be done. There can be various ways it can be structured in such a way, because every generation will earn the wealth through that brand. So this is very important aspects. Then another is the succession plan. There should be a flexibility. It should not be rigid. If some circumstances like now the COVID has come, and before that there is any family settlement plan, so there should be some flexibility to change according to the circumstances. And the last, which is very important, is the legal sanctity of the family constitution. This legal sanctity, sometimes I have seen the promoters themselves, they enter into some documents, sign some documents, and they are under the impression that everything is settled, but finally when it comes into effect and there is some dispute, it is difficult to enforce those contracts in the courts. So it is very important there should be a legal sanctity to this family constitution. Now yes.
I think,
Post-
Mr. Rakesh Kumar, which you have just told, these are the things which business houses or their consultants should look into before, at the time they are conceiving the succession plan.
Yes,
This is the
at the time,
pre-stage before they do anything. They should be even in their normal course, they should look about this.
yeah, this is the important stage, because this is a stage where a lot of litigation can be prevented. If
Yes,
all
yes.
these aspects can be looked into, if the professionals, those who are helping these promoters, if they have some, or they can consider all these issues, then the better family settlement plan can be prepared, better constitution can be prepared, so there can be a prevention of litigation into the court, which ultimately leads to the loss of wealth, goodwill, everything.
Yeah, that's right.
So this is now the post dispute stage. Now this is the stage where the dispute starts, and here again I would say, रहीमन धागा प्रेम का मत छोड़ो चटकाए, एक बार जो टूट गया फिर नहीं जुड़ पाए, कबीर जी का जो एक कहना है कि एक बार जो टूट गया वो फिर नहीं जुड़ेगा. So this is a very important, once the dispute starts, it's now very critical, because these are the commercial matters, it's not the personal matter. There are many stakeholders, government, employees, customers, vendors, so many people are involved. It's not only the group, promoters, they're involved. So it will have a great consequences if it starts for any corporate business group. So the professional role, how the professional can work. Professional role is, first of all, there should be immediately, the professional can make an effort, there should be a mediation effort between the promoters, that immediately there should be a mediation and the meetings, professionals should meet, because many times I have seen the people who are there as a statutory auditor, old advocates, they are related with all promoter members. They started doing the meetings and elicited the views of the different promoters, that how it can be resolved. And here I have seen, it is not that the dispute start and it will resolve within 2 or 3 months. I have seen the cases where it takes 2 years, 3 years, 5 years process, and the settlement finally does not take place. So here, if the professionals, if they render proper service, it can be done. And if with all methodological approach it is done, this can be achieved. This is my personal experience. Because whenever the meeting takes place, there should be minutization. What has happened? If there is a off the record, then it need not to be recorded. If there is a formal agreement, it should be minutized. So the progress should be minutized. Then once this process starts, the post-dispute start, then again, if the promoters, members sits together, then these processes again starts. The importance, because there can be a division at this stage. So the valuation is a very important issue again. Because the valuation, without the valuation, no member would make an exit from the group. So the valuation of the everything, assets, how much are the liabilities, how the personal guarantees are placed, what is the value of brands, turnover, so many things. So the valuation is very critical aspects which needs to be looked into. Then the brand, again, if the brand is resolved at the pre-litigation, the pre-dispute stage, better. Now is at the post-dispute stage, it is more difficult to sort out this issue, brand issue. Then the engagement of the other professionals, as I said, it is not a job of one professional. Many times I have seen promoters, though if someone is close to the promoters, he will render all the advice. But later on, they will realize it requires the work of many other professionals. These things cannot be achieved without the involvement of other, like legal, financial, technical, so many people involvement requires. Because ultimately, if this at this post-dispute stage, if proper documentation is not done, it will lead into the fierce litigation. I'll give you a small example here of the Reliance Group. Reliance Group, there was a settlement between Mukesh Ambani and Mr. Anil Ambani, and the MOU was entered into. And later on, the dispute went up to the Honorable Supreme Court. And the issue was that Anil Ambani was raising the issue, this MOU, my brother is not implementing entirety. And what was the observation of Supreme Court? Supreme Court has said in that case, this MOU was not adopted by the public shareholder. It was not adopted in the board meeting. So the documentation part is very important. The engagement of professional while doing this post dispute stage, documentation is very critical. Otherwise, it will lead to the litigation and it will pass at least 5 to 10 years. Then thereafter, the setting of issues accounts. This is very important in our Indian tradition. Corporate groups, there are issues. There are on account issues and off account issues. Some promoters, families, there is a setting off of certain accounts. That is another critical job to be done by the people who are involved in this process, professionals. Then the banking insurance issue, how the bank signatories are to be changed, how these limits are to be changed, how the collaterals will be altered. These all are very important issues. Then this next issue is youngsters to behave. Because I have seen in these family disputes, youngsters, they are very aggressive. They have different idea, different passions. They want we should be immediately parted with. So elders, those who have built up the institutions, they don't like, they want everything should be amicable, but because of the aggression, this dispute again starts. So this professional's role is to make a amicable situation between old generation and the young generation. This is a very critical aspect. So youngsters at this stage should behave well, otherwise it will lead into the fierce litigation. Then my experience is prevention of siphon of funds from the group. This is the stage where promoters start doing siphoning of the funds. Once the dispute starts, every promoter wants now this is a Dubta Jahaj. It is going to die down. So it's better to take out the money from this group. So this is the stage where the siphoning of should be prevented. Many promoters I have seen doing it. Then some promoters, to put a pressure on the other, like brother, sister, brother-in-law, they start filing the criminal complaints also to pressure the other group so that they enter into this settlement. So such kind of the professionals can advise to their clients that it's better if the dispute is resolved amicably, because by adopting all such methods, ultimately it will lead into the loss of the group, goodwill, everything will go. Then the decorum in family relations. The professionals should handle these issues psychologically also, philosophically also. Every method professionals should adopt. There should be decorum. Decorum should be maintained. Then the proper documentation. Documentation is very essential part. Again, at the pre-dispute stage, at the post-dispute stage also. Like I give the latest example, one of the main litigation we are fighting, it is 1,000 of crores group. The settlement between the brothers takes place and the MOU is signed only in 4 pages of the 1,000 of crores. This company belongs to you, this company belongs to you. This is mine, this is yours. Then everything is finished. And now the litigation is going on for the last 3-4 years. It will go another 5 years. So this documentation is very important. How ultimately in accordance with company law, income tax, in accordance with law, how it will take place. If the clarity is not there, and even I have seen some of the parties to the settlement, they deliberately put the lacuna in the settlement so that tomorrow we can cover up the situation. So these are all my practical experiences I am sharing. So this is very important for professional to look at this stage. And the settlement as a decree, if the settlement takes place, this is also very important. I will advise my friends, professionals, if the settlement takes place, it should not be simply an agreement. There should be a mediation and make a decree so that it becomes an award. It should not be in a limbo. If there is a contract, if that is breached, again you will go into litigation. It's better if there is some settlement right, immediately go before the mediator and arbitrator and make it as a decree so that it should be enforceable. Then divide. But if again it is again a post dispute stage, if the group can remain as a common, if something like that can be done. And at this stage, my advice is some nominee director should come onto the board, because the board does not function well while such post-dispute stage start in the business group. So it's very important for someone to come and take the charge with the consensus of everyone. So these are the important issues. And my next is litigation stage. This litigation stage, once the party comes before the court, there is no post-dispute settlement, then the litigation stage comes. So here also again, my experience is all the courts, whether it's a NCLT, earlier Company Law Board, or whether High Court, they will first ask you better settle. This is a family matter, you settle it. So at that time also professional, they should put their effort. There should not be enmity. Because if there is a more enmity, it will take a longer time to resolve that dispute. I will request the early mediation, because the court also suggests parties to have the mediation with some retired High Court judge, retired Supreme Court judge. Parties should immediately adopt this method, early mediation, because it's because through mediation many commercial aspects can be resolved. Then thereafter, there should be a continuous meeting and the minutization. It's very important, because at this stage, the problem, the difficulty which comes is that once the matter goes before the court, there is a running the corporate business group as a going concern. The difficulty comes, like the payment of salaries, payment to the vendors, payments to the statutory dues, bank signatoryship. You one side of promoter writes to the bank, you stop the operations. So the bank operation gets stuck up. So there are so many issues, and the group may be lost forever. Group account may become NPA. So all these issues needs to be resolved. But if the professional, those who are associated with the family, if they can do some help to resolve such issues, then so that we can prevent the corporate business group to die down. So these all are very important aspects. Here, the litigation stage I would dwell upon two matters. Litigation, there is no effort by the promoter to have the settlement, because can you hear me, Samir?
Yes, we can hear you.
Because there is a when it is seen, there is a dispute. When it is seen, the promoters, they did not even talk about the family settlement. When they come before, I was hearing Justice Midha of Delhi High Court. He was doing the webinar. He was sharing one of his experience. Then when he asked both the brothers, why don't you settle with each other? The elder brother said, he never asked me for the settlement. If he asked me, I will give his share. So such is the situation. There is a communication gap. There are sometimes some people in between, they don't allow communication to take place. So it is better the communication should be there. Sometimes unnecessarily it reaches up to the stage of litigations. And one more matter, that was my matter before the Company Law Board. There was again it's a business or corporate business group. There were two brothers, and there's a ego issues. Again, the judge was saying, why don't you settle? And the judge advised one of the brother, it's better you should now sit together. And the younger brother then touched the feet of the elder brother. The elder brother before the court said, now whatever he wants to take, give him. I do not want anything. So sometimes such kind of issues are there. The things can be resolved, but unnecessarily it is delayed. So if there is a proper, with the professional's help, if there is a proper mediation, proper talkative things, so things can be resolved. So the next is the post-litigation stage. The post-litigation stage is again after litigation, again the settlement. Ultimately, my experience is 95% family matters finally get settled, even up to Supreme Court. Finally, settlement has to take place. This is better if it happens early. So the post-litigation stage, again, this brands and goodwill, if can be post-partition also, if it can be saved. This is professional advice. I think Mr. Suraj will dwell upon this issue, structuring and all better. And this is my advice. This relationship should be maintained even post litigations, if it can be done, because sometimes I have seen in my experience the two warring groups, they becomes the business partners after so many years. तो जैसे वो कहते हैं ना कि लड़ो तो इतना भी ना लड़ो तो जब दोस्ती हो तो शर्मिंदा होना पड़े, तो there should be some level of decorum when the fights takes place before the court. Now these are my personal experiences. I have shared the litigation experiences of these family settlements. The another issues I will now. These are as far as structuring is concerned, these are some of the important SEBI orders in the list of the listed companies, where if the family settlement takes place, they gives the exemption to the various regulation, takeover regulations. So through regulatory also, enforcement also, there is a help. So the promoters, any professionals can go through these orders. I will share this presentation. And these are very important orders to be looked into, the professionals, those who are engaged in the family settlements.
I think Mr. Rakesh Kumar, these things will be shared with the participants, and they can very well look into these judgments, and we'll share your presentation after the webinar.
Yes, the last one is important is yes, these are some of the Supreme Court judgment, how the Supreme Court has taken the business family settlement. What is the view of the Supreme Court? Supreme Court, even since this is yes.
This one is.
Yes, this is a Lala Khuni.
Yeah.
This is 1911 judgment of Supreme Court. Here, the Supreme Court, it was not the Supreme Court at times, it was a Privy Council and the High Court. And they had also recognized that this family settlement, the effect should be given. Rather, all of this Supreme Court judgment, the judicial opinion is not much technicality should be looked into. If the corporate families entered into a settlement, even if there is not a proper stamp duty, etc., they will just overlook it. If it can be implemented for the peace of the family, they will give effect to the family settlement. Even in one of the case, Supreme Court has held even someone right in the dairy also, there is a settlement that will be given effect to. So this is very important judgment where the Supreme Court has said. Then this Krishna Bihari Lal, again, this is the judgment where the Supreme Court has said, family say, it is not that the family, it is a settlement between one family. Connected family members like a cousin, brothers, or all other family members can also join in the family settlement, and it will be given effect to. Then this Ram Charan Das is the Supreme Court important judgment. This provides that once you entered into a family settlement, I have seen some promoters that they want to wriggle out from the family settlement. So this judgment is deterrent for those promoters. Once you enter into a settlement, you cannot get out of it. And then another judgment is Sahu Mahadhu Chand. This is again on the issue of enforcement of settlement. Then this is the latest judgment, Tulsi Dhara, 2019. It provides even the family settlement is not in a written document. It can be proved in the court. It has evidentiary value. This is a 2019 Supreme Court. And the celebrity judgment on this family settlement is Calais and others. It provides that the settlement can be oral settlement, and if it is reduced into the writing, registration is not required. So this is also very important judgment. So these are my practical experiences, Samir.
Yeah.
The family settlement.
I would say it was an excellent insight and information to all of us. I think what we all heard is your experience, and it is a very practical thing, even not for professionals, but for the business houses also. What are the points and the issues which they should delve upon? And I think one of the learning for the business houses, the corporate houses who are hearing to this webinar, that they should communicate, they should engage professionals, they should talk, and they should take this settlement at a relevant point of time, and they should take up this as a duty towards their business to other stakeholder also, and to resolve this situation in a very practical manner. Litigation will not benefit anybody. So I think we had got a very deep insight into the litigation aspect of it, very practical and critical aspect of succession planning and family settlements. And we'll take the questions later on after the session of Mr. Suraj Malik. Thank you, Mr. Rakesh Kumar. Mr. Suraj Malik,
Thank you.
most welcome. We'll have your presentation, please.
Thank you, Rakesh ji. Thank you so much for that wonderful overview about all the various stages. Sorry for the glitch earlier, but what I'm really going to focus, and I can talk about succession for 2 days. So Samir, please interrupt me, or please feel to tell me when we run out of time.
No, it's pleasure. Yeah. I think
Topic
our participants, the number of participants are increasing. It is showing that people are finding it insightful and knowledgeable. It is increasing their insight into the subject.
Sure. So
Yes.
as Rakesh ji shared, how disputes and all are to be avoided. I'm really going to focus more on what should we do to avoid a dispute altogether. And maybe I'm not a lawyer, that's why I'm sort of trying to keep the work more in the pre-lawyer territory. But no, having said that, we all, in the interest of families to survive and succeed, and great data points Rakesh ji gave, and Samir, you also shared that, by second or third generations, business don't survive. And my next 15-20 minutes is going to focus essentially on what can be done for businesses to survive, for families to survive, for them to stay bonded. I just like to set the tone, because we all have heard the saying that where there is a will, there is a way. And I think in families, it is just the lack of will. I change this phrase to family situations, especially the lawyers that I work with, is when I say where there is a will, there is a way to dispute. And I'll come to why we are saying wills are not the best way for succession. But the key reason where families fail is there is a lack of will for a way. And here are some of the thought processes when I work with business houses or families. A lot of times people think this is only required for large families, right? All the celebrated case laws, we are Ambanis, Birlas, etc. They believe this is not for us. Now, wealth is always relative, and wealth needs to be planned for everyone. So this is, in relative terms, essential for every business house or every large HNI in that sense. People are uncomfortable with the thought of giving up control, because in an unsaid situation, whoever is in the driver's seat, who is the family patriarch or leader, is very comfort in that zone, that how things are operating, he wants to continue. And the sheer thought of thinking about succession, talking about it, is very, very an uncomfortable thought. It's an awkward discussion with families. When we as professionals go, hardly anyone wants to, they think never die, or then nothing will happen. So it becomes very, very difficult. We've seen enough people who think, I've done nominations, I've done some oral wishes, I've sat with my family over dinner one day and told them. Now that's not what is enough and what is sufficient. And Rakesh ji also suggested in his various cases, right, that it may not be best, especially in the modern times where we are doing business. We need to be more robust and more clear about our succession planning. Perception is also an issue in families. Sometimes you might think what you do is fair, whereas the reality or the undercurrent in the family, especially from the next generation, could be very different on what they believe is fair. So these are the reasons which people procrastinate and don't think about succession and don't act on it. I've also tried to, now on an x-axis, y-axis, we all like to look at data this way. So one axis, I'm just saying how as families grows from sole ownership, they become sibling partnerships, in the next generation. Then what we call them as cousins consortium, as the family goes bigger, and maybe by generation 4, in each generation that you see on x-axis, it's a family dynasty. Now the issues as family grows becomes more complex and more difficult as well. And only a family which starts addressing the issues at an earlier or a generation 1 stage is able to survive through these generations. So if you look at succession and legacy, that's actually an issue of generation 1. If you're creator of a business, for you, succession and legacy is important. And we spoke about the goodwill and the brand as well with Rakeshji's presentation. And what is important at this stage is to create a common purpose, a common vision for the family. This is what a owner who starts a business, it's important for him. As the family grows, next generation, sons or sibling partnership, I think there the challenge becomes that how do we formalize our decision making process? How do we formalize communication? Because age, ego, everything, a lot of comes uh, in the middle. There are outsiders, there are spouses, etc., who get involved. So the family starts becoming more disintegrated than what it was at the owner level. And there is this conflict that should we work together or should we rival, and should we, is sum of parts better? Those issues need to be addressed. A lot of times at generational two, people who get it easy also lose this whole entrepreneurial spirit, right? Which is a challenge for founders, that how do they keep their next generation interested with the same hunger to grow the business. As we move to generation 3 has these issues that someone takes more interest in the business, is more active. So there are these power circles that start to emerge. There are need to separate ownership and management clearly by this time. And people also need to figure out now that I might be elder, I have a different role in the family, versus as an elder, I have a different role in the business. So all this needs to get formalized gradually as the business is in a cousin consortium or a larger thing. And finally, if it survives through generation 4, which is rare, but it does, then you see the issues also grow up. But some of the major ones I'll touch upon is that whether the next generation, is it a merit that gets you a seat in the business or an employment, or is it a privilege? These sort of communications need to happen as families grow. There is also a lot of need of an exit or separation at this stage. Naturally, the business can't absorb everyone. As well as remaining committed to the vision, maintaining bonding. All this becomes very, very important for business to survive. So these are softer issues, but if someone is aware of these issues, they can then plan for it so that disputes don't happen. That is the point I was trying to make.
Yeah. Suraj, I will just stop you for a second, and what we are, just to make it more interesting for the audience also. So in mid, I am taking one question. Somebody has raised an issue. I'll just put that question and then we'll continue our thing. But one second. So I think Anita Shukla has raised her hand. I'll just, Anita, I am unmuting your mic. You can speak your question and the panelist will reply to it. Now, please speak now. Anita, you can speak now.
Our speaker is mute. Samir, I believe our speaker is mute.
No, I am unmuting her. But okay, we will take her later on because I am unmuting. She is not able to. Anyway, then Suraj, you may continue, please. Yes.
Right. You can hear me well?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So yeah, as I said, I'm creating awareness of issues and all. Now, a lot of times, especially when we meet generations, who are not founders, ask us this question: "Bhai, is it relevant to stay together, or does it makes more sense to split?" And the answer generally, as a professional and as with past experience as family business, yes, there is merit in staying together, and there is merit in drawing those Lakshman rekhas and trying to keep together. That is why plan for succession, and the reasons are obvious, right? That when you're together, you have access to shared resources, you can do bigger things. There is a family legacy and brand which is preserved. It's a big intangible to have, versus setting up new and scaling it. Cultures and values also get defined over a period of time far better. It's difficult to create when you're new. And when you're as a family, you can leverage on the family network, leverage on relationships, leverage on all that experience which may not be easily available. And again, splitting up creates duplication of cost, economies, etc. You suffer a lot. In India also, there is a lot of negative emotions and impact on community, how they perceive today, compared to the Western world of a family branching out or splitting. So in some cases, it might be inevitable that you can't see into the face of each other, so you settle logically and go through the steps as Rakesh ji has advised. Very logical separation, a very logical thing, but dispute is not really going to help anyone together. So why succession planning? If I've now set your minds, opened it up that why it is important, here are the top issues. I mean, you need to protect your assets. You can today, everyone who's in a business takes loans, signs personal guarantees. It's almost a given with the way banks operate in India. This exercise can give you an opportunity to ring fence your assets, to protect them from, all the risks that you are taking while doing business. And at the same time, it will ensure that, you seamlessly are able to transfer, because when you are not around, and to avoid the disputes, the asset transfer is far more seamless and simpler as the generations go by. It also prevents conflicts, what we want to avoid, and it helps in maintaining family harmony. And today we don't have estate or inheritance taxes in India so far, but at some stage, given the income inequalities in India, we will have them, and they will go after the relatively ultra rich or HNIs, as the tax laws have gone in the last few years. But the more benefit today that this exercise can give someone is greater amount of governance that it will bring into the family. If you start documenting things in on lines, what is the pre-dispute for Rakesh ji mentioned, or what we'll now discuss in terms of how things will be governed, how decisions will be taken, so that everyone, when there is a document, it's just like having an articles of a company. Where you have a document, people more likely adhere to it, and the human mind doesn't become adventure enough to then, create disputes on bad days. This exercise will basically permit families to deal with contingencies and deal with claims rather than avoid. I mean, this is not a solution. If bad intention, nothing can solve, but it is just a tool to prevent conflict. And moving down to the next level, how
Yeah, Suraj, here I have a small related to your this slide, need for succession planning. So I think some questions are coming. I mean, succession planning is, do you think it is required, it is more required to the businesses who have large tangible assets, or it can be worked out, is important for the people who have maybe some only intangible assets, or assets are very less? So do you think it is suited or more required for a certain kind of businesses and not for all kind of businesses?
I think it is required for all kind of businesses, because any creator of business needs to ensure that it survives. And assets is only, it might meet one of the objectives of protecting that assets. When they're intangibles, maybe those also need to be protected. But let's say there is a, I've done cases where there is a brand on food, or there is a brand on something. When the family sits here, someone might want to use that food brand to make a pesticide, for example, and which you don't want to allow, because he might say it's just a family brand. So even there, you need to define protocols that yes, there is a common brand, yes, you are born in the family, you have a right to it, but what you can use it for without damaging the larger family, or without, what is your role, what is your responsibility. It will just set that governance matrix. So maybe the asset protection for tangible assets is far greater an objective that people may see in an immediate future to achieve, but the long term benefit of business continuity and survival, it is relevant to, as I said, wealth is relative, size of business is relative, this is needed by everyone.
So what happens where, so there are certain businesses but they don't have legal heirs or family members, then what they do? I mean, because business goes on, how it is important, is it important for them also to do something? What is your views on that, particularly if they don't have family members or near legal heirs?
If they don't have legal heirs, is very unique. Then most likely such families want to devote it to philanthropy, or direct it that once they are not there, the business still continues but meets some of their philanthropic or other objectives. That is very difficult to do through a will. So again, there you will need, and what I'll discuss in my next slide, that you can look at structures such as trust to achieve those objectives, right? That you worked hard all your life. Doing business in India is not easy. So the fruits of that, it doesn't that the top management or some key associates of the business sabotage it while you're not around, or only waiting to grab it like sharks. But you sort of want your legacy to go. You want that you've created something so it survives, and the fruits are maybe applied to philanthropy, or to anyone who's taken care of you when you are in your older age or tough times, right? So it is important even in that context.
So I think, so I think where you don't have legal heirs, you don't have near ones or dear ones to whom you want to give the business, there it becomes more important that how it will be taken care after you.
Yes, absolutely. It is important in that scenario as well. It can't be afford to be. This is like buying insurance. Let me say it that if everyone today here is educated enough to buy insurance, you are protecting your assets by buying something to give your family a monetary relief. But whatever you've created so far, insurance is going to given that one time extra funds, but this is what you've created. This is insurance, what you've created so far. So what are the typical
Yes.
ways that this is done? If you look at the traffic lights, very intuitively on the slide, you will see that the trust is green on most of the parameters, and will is essential. I nowhere I'm suggesting that will is not required. I'm saying that will is a basic thing which everyone should have. But for larger families, complicated families, or families which have succession issues, a trust can achieve the governance and other intangibles far better. And the reason, as I said, the first point is flexibility, right? If you have peculiar issues, separated portions of families, spouse issues, special children, etc., or parents that you want to take care of, all that can be addressed through trust. It is also far more enforceable because you will see it play during your lifetime. It is not something that will come into play after you are gone, because assets move into trust while you are alive, and you can see that is. The only green on will, and this is important in an Indian context, unfortunately, we all are control freaks and we believe our importance is there till the assets are in our name.
Yes.
That can be achieved through a trust. So I only put an amber there instead of a red, because even in trust, there are ways to retain control over the assets and your importance while allowing economic ownership to flow to the next generation. And when you do that, you automatically achieve the rest of the three, which is not possible in a will, which is asset protection and estate tax planning. And finally, a probate process, which in some states can be both expensive and time consuming, as well as invite unnecessarily media attention. All that can be avoided if you do succession planning through a trust. So will is basic, and trust is generally a more advanced but far superior a solution to it. Some of the other modes also which should be done, I mean, while you are alive, you can also look at directly gifting to the successor, which means you're pushing your succession planning to that generation. And in some financial assets, you have ability to do joint ownership and nomination as well. The legal rights of nominee is very different. Apart from insurance, nominee is only a custodian. So nominee itself is like a trustee only. But it just makes the process easier if you have nomination or joint ownership in some of your financial assets. That's where it takes. So because I'm recommending trust, I'll spend 2 minutes on what a trust typically is and what are the constituents of a trust. Trust is governed by an old
Yes.
1908 Trust Act. It is set up. It's a separate for tax purposes. It becomes a separate entity, but it's not a separate entity as a legal person. The trustee is basically like a director of a company. He has a fiduciary obligation. So whatever a trustee does has to be in interest of beneficiaries. And in India, you are allowed to have, two trustees. You can have a board of trustees, etc. It is also important to plan for succession of the trustee, because in your generation, you might define that this person or yourself will be trustee. But the trust deeds today in modern day should also plan that if the trustee is not there, who takes charge and how does he define the working of the trust. The settler and beneficiaries are, intuitively easier to understand. The person who contributes or creates the trust is the settler or the contributor, and beneficiaries are people or largely families for which the trust is settled. Today, our tax law has a very enabling provision where putting assets into a trust do not involve any capital gains tax or any recipient tax under Section 56. So both, there are clear direct exemptions available. And you can have rights given to beneficiaries to change trustees, etc., and also defined, right? Because as families grow, who will become beneficiaries, etc. All that as a settler, or when you're doing this, so you can define whether daughter-in-law or son-in-law will have rights, etc. These are issues typically in families. All that can be very well written here, and you will use this to override the, the Hindu succession law or the other religion succession law if you don't have, a trust typically. I'll go
So I
little.
think, Suraj, here the crux is when you talk about trust, I think it is very important, as Mr. Rakesh was telling, that a proper advisor or professional must be engaged by the business houses or the people, so that proper structuring, as you are suggesting, and the document can be made so that the process is seamless and it works fine.
Yes.
I think in Indian context, most of the time, the business houses, they keep on finding कि कहीं से मुझे template मिल जाए मैं वैसा बना लूं. I think that should be avoided,
Absolutely.
because every family would have a customized solution to their problems.
Yes, there is no straitjacket formula. Unfortunately, some wealth managers sell it as a template, but yeah, this is very customized. This is very deep and a slow process that needs to be done. You shouldn't sit on a table and onboard this. You should gradually build it, decide clauses that work for you, don't work for you. So there is no template. If someone asks me for a trust, every family is different. Every family's requirements and needs are different. And it is your imagination and your problems that you can solve through a trust. An outsider really brings in an objectivity. I would not say it is a complicated subject that people can't do, but in my own case, if I were to do my trust also, I will tend to bring an outsider because you tend to get colored by your own. If in your own case, my bias,
Yes.
let's say if I have 3 children, I will have bias for whatever reasons, right? So an outsider eliminates that bias, will bring in that subjectivity that do this, this is right, this is what will sustain. And it just makes it very easier for you to then think through, brainstorm. So in the exercises that we do about 3 months of pure brainstorming, right? We force a person to think on what could be the situations, what could go wrong, what does he want to provide for, and then get into a documenting mode with it, right? And by then, all the phases in the pre dispute, what Rakesh ji mentioned, I would say that all those are necessary things that you have to make a person go through, and as an advisor facilitate that. So I will go to this slide a little quickly because this was already covered in the stage. So basically, is it taking inventory of your assets, building structures? You need to plan for tax, FEMA, SEBI, where it is listed. All the cases we've seen for listed company, you need SEBI approval. Even if the build structure, you see, I mentioned everything has to be tailor-made. And not only it is customized at creation, this has to be visited. In fact, we would recommend annually you should take stock of how the family is moved, how assets are moved, how your children or your successors are treating you. It's good to revisit it periodically as well. How this takes form, I mean, because there are some jargons I hear, I just thought, so family office is nothing, it's not a legal entity, it's only a way of administrating the trust. A lot of people also have outside the trust because they keep the trust, it's a simple document, and a lot of governance goes today in something that we call a family charter agreement, which is a separate agreement. It is like bylaws of a family. Implementation for succession planning also requires skill development both for the current as well as the next generation to take the transfer or the transition far more seriously. Rakesh ji also mentioned that salaries and rewards, this is one of the core issues where people have disputes. So you need to, while implementing, define that if one part of the family is more active in business, how do you incentivize or reward them versus the family which is passive? You can't just neglect them. So you need to ensure that they are also, their economic interests are protected. And if at all there is a conflict, there has to be an agreed resolution mechanism before anything goes to court. So implementation doesn't end at creating a will or a trust, but actually a lot of education and ongoing work. So like Samit, the point that you mentioned, it is a customized solution. It is not a straitjacket solution for any family at all.
Yeah.
These are the things, as I said, this was not covered by the current thing, but I just put a quick slide that family charter and constitution is separate from a trust. You would have seen the Tatas, Birlas, Ambanis all have this today, and this helps to keep the long-term vision intact. It helps to define all the rules, etc. This is again a full 3-day topic to talk about. But most families, after they go from a will to a trust stage, also will come to a stage where there is a family charter or a constitution. In interest of time, I would just conclude here and would like to open this to Q&A. But succession planning, we are all agreeing that it is important, and I say that don't logic, if you apply, it will take you only limited place. This is where you have to imagine the problems, and it will take you everywhere. And my 10 takeaways, because there is an overlap of family, business houses, and personal assets, is that there is no benefit in delaying it or neglecting this. It is something that you need to act today with professional support. Fear of losing control is illusionary. You can retain, every structure can give you ability to retain control. Make this participative, make this involve not just family but maybe some of the key senior professionals as well. And while doing this, the case law that was mentioned by Rakesh ji, also consider impact on other, if there are investors, if there are boards who need to take care of professional, if there's an ESOP in the company, consider whatever you're doing as a family on how these external stakeholders are impacting. Never mix business and personal assets. If they're already mixed, this is the time to start segregating it, start demerging it, start splitting it, because succession for both will be very, very different. Gone are the days where multiple holding companies and cross holdings were common. Today, for succession, you need simpler structures, you need transparent holding structures, because families also want to see clearly that if I own an asset, where is my ownership? How do I own it? How do I govern it? Who decides how decisions are taken? So you need to arrive at a very transparent and simple ownership structure. You have to engage with specialists like Rakesh ji, like Samir, like others out there to bring value and objectivity. Don't just treat this as a tax exercise, that estate tax and all, but the intangible benefits are a lot that you can achieve for your family. And finally, you need to, structure communication to avoid conflicts and revisit, keep visiting that every periodic event, whether it's annually, a marriage in the family, even a death in the family, right? It's important to just revisit on what is there, how far it is relevant today. That sort of concludes my presentation, Samir. You can take over
Yeah.
from it.
Yeah. So I think we already have a lot of questions with us. So I'll put the questions to the panelists. In the meantime, attendees may raise hand or put their questions in Q&A box. So it will come to us. So we can put it to. So I think there is Pratik has raised hand. He wants to ask some questions. So I'm giving Pratik, you can ask your question. He has to unmute his. Pratik, I think I have given you permission to speak, but your mic is muted from your end. But anyway, Suraj, till Pratik gets his mic set. There is a question. People want to know your view on the stamp duties. Whenever there is a family settlement, transaction happens, or things are separated or distributed. So what is the impact on the stamp duty part of it, whether it is levied, it is exempted, and what's your advice, or what is your view on the stamp duty part of it?
So stamp duty is a very state subject in India. It's hard to give a blanket answer. Largely for movable assets, including financial assets like shares. Today we still are in a regime, I think till July of this year, where transfer of demat shares, and today you can demat even unlisted company shares, can be achieved without any stamp duty. Transfer of other financial assets also can be achieved without stamp duty, and there are ways, whether you do a gift deed in some state versus do a simple correspondence for gift. Those optimization opportunities are there, because some states also on a gift deed have at least a stamp duty between 2 to 3%. So we recommend that if it's within the family, you could also do a simple correspondence which doesn't attract a stamp duty. The bigger challenge is on immovable property. Now, states like Haryana today exempt transfer within blood relations, first level, if you were gifting properties to your children, etc., or to your immediate relatives. But other states don't, and none of the states gives an exemption for transferring to a trust. So immovable properties, there is an upfront cost usually if you want to transfer it to a trust. Now this cost has to be weighed on a case-to-case basis and compared with, let's say, if you don't do this and if you go through the will and a probate process, there are typically in some states court fees and other charges that are also paid, if you go through the probate process. So you have to do that analysis and look at whether this cost, again, it is like an insurance premium that you're paying today to protect that and to prevent disputes and incur that cost today, or if it is material, then you deal immovable property through a will, because transmission doesn't have things. Rakesh, do you want to add something on this?
Yeah. See, as this stamp duty, my view is, apart from this, as far as the family settlement is concerned, once it is determined in the family settlement, these properties will go to this family member, this will go to this family members. Then, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
So that family settlement, as per the judicial precedent, that family settlement need not to be, it is not subject to stamp duty. If there is only family, it's just a determination of rights and responsibility. The judgment of the Supreme Court, this is a Yeluppa Uma Maheshwari, has thrown light on this issue of the family settlement and the transfer of properties on the stamp duty issue. This is 16 SSC 787, 2015. And Delhi High Court has also referred this judgment in the recent judgment. This family settlement, if something is recorded by the family, that instrument is not subject to major stamp duty unless it is acted upon. If it is acted upon finally in future, then this subject to the stamp duty. But as an instrument itself,
No, but
as per the judgment.
But Mr. Rakesh and Suraj, there are two aspects. One is instrument and other are the assets which are being transferred as part of family settlement or a business succession. So what about like we are transferring the assets of a company or a land or a premises. So what, even though it is going in a family, what is the impact on the stamp duty there?
Normally, for immovable property, you will not be able to avoid a stamp duty. Normally, by and large, I mean, for most states, you will not. But for movable property and financial assets, there are ways and means to optimize it. That would be my.
Suraj, there is a question for you. I mean, a gentleman, Mr. Prajit, he is asking a question that is succession planning carried out before company goes into an IPO or a private equity transaction, or is there any stage for succession planning related to this? Is there any correlation with these things?
There is no correlation, but if it is not done and if it is going into private equity, so I have today a situation like where most private equities, when they see on the opposite side that there is no there is a family involved, they are also concerned that who is the counterparty and how will their investment be protected. So I have seen private equity term sheets today now say that if not during investment, within 6 months as a condition subsequent, they are also saying get your act together, do some documentation act like this, because it gives them comfort that the family is sorted and they will figure a way out. So the moment external stakeholders are involved in your business, you need to take this more seriously, because governance and passive versus active, today everyone might be taking salary, might be taking drawings, might be putting personal expense, all that will stop the moment you have external intervention, for example. So it is critical. If it is not already done, it should be done, and it will give comfort to your external stakeholder far more. Post listing, if you do it like Rakesh,
I think that's a very relevant point, and it is insight to us also when we do a lot of private equity transaction. We will also keep this point in mind. Thank you for this insight.
Sure.
Mr. Rakesh, there is a question coming up. If you can in brief explain to the audience, I mean, when succession planning is going on, what are the few major things which forms as stumbling blocks? Though you have informed many things in your presentation, but still few things which are really major, which are stumbling block in creating a succession planning.
See, the major stumbling block is, I will say, the lack of communication.
No.
If someone is there in the promoter's family who can communicate with each other, that is the key. And the promoters, they adhere to that person's advice. That is the main issue. There is a communication. I can prevent everything from the disaster, any disaster in the family settlements.
So I think the communication among the family member, they sit and talk to other, is one of the major things which doesn't happen and creates problem in this process.
Only communication gap leads to the major disasters in family, corporate family group. Even a single, I just give you a small example. In one of the group we had fought the litigation, the company secretary of the company, he was from the one set of shareholders, one part from the side of one of the brother. He had written one letter to the other brother who was the chairman of the group. We are removing from this post of chairmanship because of this and this reason. That one even leads to the litigation, and then lasts for the 7-8 years. And both the brothers immensely suffered because of that one communication. So the communication should be very open, very transparent, and someone should come in between and resolve the issues.
Okay. So I think we are nearing our time, but I will take the one last question. Suraj, it is to Suraj also and to Mr. Rakesh also. When we talk about succession planning, whether succession planning is a dynamic subject, or once we have done it ends, or it has to be continuously changed or evolved or modified. What is your first? We'll hear Suraj and then Rakesh, and then we'll give vote of thanks. But the audience want to know, and that it's my personal question as well, that is it a continuous process, or once it is done, matter ends there? Suraj, please.
it is a continuous process. I think this is a dynamic process. It should be revisited, just like you make operating plans for your business annually or whatever. This needs to be kept rolling over because circumstances change, people change, family dynamic composition changes, your asset values profiles might change. You know, when you split, let's say between two sons or two brothers, you might have something. So it is always good to take stock of what you have. What should change is only maybe asset allocation or, you know, asset entitlement. The parts of succession planning which should be static and which is more stable is on the vision, the purpose, the long-term goal of the family. That I think should be far more stable, but the tactical aspect should be revisited at least annually.
So I think you're saying the succession plan or our documentation should be such that it is in two parts. One may be static, which is fixed, which may be fixed, may not change, and
Yes.
other which may change with the passage of time and generations and all those. So that part can be changed.
Yes, you have to make it modular, and the successful structure is something that permits even unwinding it, right? So you have to be ability to modify it, unwind it, do things with it. That's the true beauty of a successful plan and a structure.
So Mr. Rakesh, over to you. I mean, what is your view on this? That we need to change it or it should be static kind of thing?
See, as I said, even while drafting the constitution for the succession planning, it should be flexible. Why I said so? Because there is some development in the group which is continuous in nature, like the children get married, new people come into the group, and there is young generation also. Because of the change of the business environment in the corporate sector, younger generation, they want to carry out some other businesses. So if there is something static kind of a constitution, so it will create difficulty for the young generation. So it is a continuous process, and the head of the family or the board of directors, they should continuously contemplating about it as the business grows and the younger generation comes. It is a continuous process, and it should be deliberated, as Mr. Suraj said, annually basis. I endorse this point of view. Annually, it should be discussed.
So I think this had been a very wonderful session for all of us, the attendees. I mean, in our webinar, we can see that still we have so many attendees who are there present in the webinar, and they are enjoying your thoughts, your insight in the subject. I am also very well enlightened on various aspects of the succession planning and business things. I think we'll also incorporate these things when we advise a lot of clients. So I think, friends, with this, we are in the end of our webinar. And so friends, I mean, whoever wish to, we have a facility of providing e-certificates to the, so you can claim it by sending an email on this. Before we end up, I'll also inform the attendees that we have another webinar coming up on global relocation strategies and risk mitigation. So in that, we have webinar panelists from China, from Tokyo, Japan, from London, where all global companies are planning to relocate their businesses, how it happens, what are the things. So that webinar is based on that particular thing. So I think with this, I thank all both the panelists who have found time to be present here from their busy schedule. Thank you, Mr. Rakesh Kumar. Thank you, Mr. Suraj Malik. A very thank you from all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.